You ever have a day that wasn't that bad, but still left you completely drained? Not angry, not heartbroken, just done. Maybe it hit you on the bus ride home, staring out the window, letting stops pass without really noticing, or during a walk in the park after something uncomfortable. People around you laughing, life feeling normal except you. Or later that night, finally home, standing in the kitchen, lights on, silence loud. And that's when it lands. Not a big thought, not a dramatic one, just this quiet question. Why does being around them take so much out of me? Not time, not money, you, your energy, your steadiness, your sense of self. If you've ever felt that, like going back doesn't add anything anymore. It only costs. This isn't you being cold or ungrateful. It's you noticing something you can't unnotice. That sense of waste doesn't come from one bad day. It builds quietly. You show up. You try. You tell yourself it's fine. And nothing explodes. But every time you leave, you notice something small. You feel a little flatter, a little less steady than before. Not devastated, just reduced. You show up for dinner. Small talk. Safe topics. Everything seems fine. But on the drive home, you realize you didn't say one real thing the entire time. You answer a text. Keep it light. Keep it short. And you feel relieved when the conversation ends. You make an excuse not to visit. Work, plans, anything. And the guilt is there, but so is the relief. These aren't big moments. They're small choices. But they're all pointing in the same direction. It's not that something was taken from you all at once. It's that something kept getting used up. Your patience, your emotional flexibility, the version of you that tries to stay open. At first, you don't call it a problem. You call it effort. You call it being mature. You call it doing the right thing. But eventually, the question changes. Not why does this hurt, but why does this keep costing me? And that question can feel unsettling, because it doesn't come with anger. It comes with clarity, a quiet awareness that you're spending something, and nothing is coming back. And maybe that's when you start asking a different question. Not, why does this feel hard? But why has it always felt like this? Because here's the part that's hard to say out loud. You didn't just get tired. You were suffocating. For some people, this started before they even knew what was happening. As kids, they learned that love came with conditions, that safety depended on staying quiet, that being themselves made things worse. So they adapted. They learned how to disappear in plain sight. How to swallow words before they reach their mouth. How to live with a constant knot in their chest and call it normal. They grew up in homes where tension lived in the air, where you could feel something was wrong but were never allowed to name it, where your emotions were either ignored, minimized, or turned against you. And when you live like that long enough, something breaks. Not loudly, not all at once, but in the part of you that used to believe things could get better. People call you strong. What they don't see is how much strength it takes just to survive the room. So, when you finally step away, something shocking happens. You can breathe. Your body reacts before your mind does. Your shoulders drop. Your chest opens. The noise inside you quiets for the first time in years. That relief isn't rebellion. It's not cruelty. It's your system escaping a place it was never safe in. I remember the first time I went home for a visit after I'd moved away. I walked in the door, and my shoulders went up, just automatically. Like my body remembered something my brain was trying to forget. I stayed for 3 hours, and when I left, I sat in my car and just breathed for the first time all day. That's when I knew it wasn't about anger. It wasn't about punishment. It was just, I couldn't keep paying that price. And yes, that's when the guilt hits. Because you were taught that enduring pain equals love, that leaving equals betrayal, that choosing yourself makes you selfish. But what no one told you is this: you were never too sensitive. You weren't dramatic. You weren't imagining it. You were surviving something that slowly took the air out of you. And walking away wasn't an attack. It was an emergency exit, the kind you don't apologize for using. And after that moment, after you finally catch your breath, something unexpected happens. Relief shows up first. Not happiness, not celebration, just relief. Your body feels lighter. You're not bracing all the time. You don't feel that tight, constant pressure in your chest anymore. And for a brief moment, it almost feels quiet inside. That's usually when the guilt arrives. It sneaks in softly, not as a voice yelling at you, but as a question you didn't ask for. What kind of person feels better after stepping away from their family? You might replay memories. Second guess yourself. Wonder if you overreacted. If you should have stayed longer. If you should have tried one more time. Because you were taught something very early on. That feeling relief is suspicious. That love is supposed to hurt a little. That endurance is a virtue. So, when your body relaxes, your mind panics. It tries to make sense of it by turning inward. Maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I'm cold. Maybe I gave up too soon. But guilt doesn't always mean you did something wrong. Sometimes it just means you stopped doing what was expected of you. Sometimes guilt is what shows up when your nervous system finally steps out of survival and your old conditioning hasn't caught up yet. That tug of war, relief in your body, guilt in your mind, can feel deeply confusing. So let this be said clearly, without judgment. Feeling lighter doesn't erase the years you endured. Feeling calmer doesn't rewrite what you lived through. It just means your system recognizes safety when it finally experiences it. And both things, the relief and the guilt, can exist at the same time without canceling each other out. And after you make that choice, after you finally step back, people expect everything to change overnight. But that's not what happens. Your life doesn't suddenly become perfect. You don't wake up healed. What changes is smaller than that. You stop shrinking. You can sit in a room without scanning faces. Make a decision without rehearsing it 10 times first. Your phone buzzes, and nothing happens. Just a text. It's not happiness. It's steadiness. And steadiness doesn't look impressive from the outside. Doesn't make for a good comeback story. It just feels like less damage accumulating every day. You still miss things. Not the person they were, but the person you wish they could be. You miss the version of family that only existed in your head. And that's a strange kind of grief. Mourning something that was never really there. But here's the thing. The pain is different now. It's cleaner. Doesn't come with fear attached. Doesn't come with self-betrayal. Doesn't come with that pit in your stomach when you see their name. You're not trading your peace for proximity anymore. And that's when you realize this was never about punishing anyone. Wasn't about proving a point. Wasn't even about being strong. It was about choosing a life where you don't have to disappear, just to belong. And maybe that choice doesn't look brave to anyone else. Maybe it looks cold, or dramatic or unnecessary. But when you're the one living it, it feels like finally breathing at your own pace. And for the first time in a long time, you're not apologizing for that. Someone asked me last week why I don't talk to my mom anymore. I said I was busy. They nodded, like that made sense. And I just let them believe it. Because the real answer doesn't fit in a sentence. There's this thing that happens when you cut someone off. People see the cut. They don't see the bleeding that came before it. Here's what they see. You didn't show up to Thanksgiving. You stopped answering calls. You chose to be alone on Christmas. And to them, that's the whole story. So they fill in the rest. It must have been one fight. Families argue. You get over it. You only get one mother. You're gonna regret this. And you sit there, listening to them rewrite your life. Because how do you explain? How do you tell someone that it wasn't one fight? It was 20 years of flinching before you spoke, of reading the room before you breathed, of learning that being small kept you safe. How do you compress that into one sentence without sounding dramatic? You can't, so you don't have proof. There's no recording, no screenshots, no bruises anyone can see. All you have is this: a body that finally stopped bracing, a chest that finally opened, a nervous system that refuses to go back. But you can't show someone that. You can't make them feel the difference between surviving and living. So instead, they see your silence, and they call it cold. They call it ungrateful. They call it cruel. Maybe the worst part isn't the judgment. It's realizing they don't actually want to understand. They want a version of your story that lets them stay comfortable. One where families are always safe. Where love always looks like endurance. Where leaving is the worst thing you can do. And when your story doesn't fit that, you become the villain. So, if you've ever been there, if you've ever had to choose between being understood and being okay, if you've ever been called heartless for just trying to survive, I need you to hear this. You're not the villain in someone else's story just because you're the protagonist in your own. You're not cruel for refusing to hurt yourself to make someone else comfortable. And you're not wrong for knowing the difference between loneliness and damage. At some point, the question stops being who's right. It becomes what costs you more. And when you answer that honestly, when you really sit with it, one thing becomes clear. You didn't choose loneliness. You chose less damage. And some days, that's the only choice there is. And if this video felt a little too familiar, you don't have to decide anything today. You don't have to label it. Justify it. Sometimes just recognizing what something costs you is already exhausting enough. If you're still in the middle of it, still trying, still hoping, still holding your breath, that's okay. Just means you haven't reached your limit yet. And if you've already stepped back, even quietly, even imperfectly, you're not cruel. You just listened when your body finally told the truth. There's no timeline for this. No correct version. You're allowed to miss them and still know you can't go back. You're allowed to grieve what you never had without sacrificing yourself to keep the idea alive. And if no one has told you this yet, you're not broken for choosing less damage. You're not heartless for protecting your peace. And you're not alone in this, even when it feels that way. If this video resonated with you, you don't have to say much. Drop a comment, even just an emoji. So someone else scrolling at 2 a.m. knows they're not the only one carrying this. And if you need to come back to this, it's not going anywhere. Neither are you